An all-Canada type of matchup coming up this weekend. It's a Fight Night Pick special. We have Ontario to Nova Scotia to California's own proper Mike Malott, the former World Series of Fighting man. He took on Hakeem Dawodu there, and I'll throw up the picture. They were very young and fresh-faced in that matchup. Dawodu threw the blitz on him and won by standing TKO. That's the only loss on Mike Malott's record. Missed weight for featherweight in that matchup. He is now a welterweight, taking on Varennes, Quebec, Canada's own, the White Lion, Yohan Lainesse, a guy that trains out of Académie Connexion with Pat Cote, a legend of Canadian MMA, is he?
Oh, without a doubt, Patrick Cote. He's one of those weird guys who isn't in the Hall of Fame, but it's like just a quality role player for a basketball team that you enjoy. Just someone who's been in your life for a very long time. Like, he's my Jonas Valanciunas, if you will. That's what Patrick Cote is to me.
Well, Matt, for the White Lion, Yohan Lainesse, you look at his UFC career, and it's been a little bit of a mixed bag. I mean, even before that, he was over at CFFC. He became a champ over there, got some really gutsy wins. He beats Justin Burlinson on Dana White's Contender Series, loses to Gabe Green, and gets knocked the F out in that matchup. And then he takes on Darian Weiss and he wins by split decision. That was a little bit of a different fight. Now, I should say, in the fight that he had against Gabe Green, he landed one of the biggest right hands I've ever seen in my entire life, and he face-planted Green. And then somehow Green came back out of that. Lainesse started to slow down, and Green started to build up, and he took over. But in the fight against Darian Weiss, it was constant pressure from Weiss on Lainesse, and then Lainesse was able to kind of land some of his shots from the outside. It was a hard fight to try and judge in that one. But overall, it was a weird one compared to Mike Malott going out there, getting bloodied up and outstruck by Mickey Gall until Gall steps in with his hands kind of down. Malott goes right hand, left hook, and face plants Mickey Gall.
I think this could be a really fun fight to watch for as long as it lasts, because what Yohan Lainesse is able to demonstrate in his UFC career up until this point is he doesn't do with pressure all that well. I think that's fair to say, but he's going to meet you with power. That's how he's going to meet your pressure. Now with Lainesse, it is interesting because I do think he does slow down over fights. He doesn't necessarily throw in combination all the time, which is interesting because when he does throw in combination and make his opponent think about defending the legs, defending the body, defending the head, he becomes a much more devastating style of a striker when he is becoming that 3-level kind of a guy, because he does have very heavy hands. He can switch stances a little bit, and I agree with you 100%. The strike that he landed on Gabe Green, it's like Benil Dariush, Mateusz Gamrot, like the overhand Dariush hit him with, like, it's on a short list for the most powerful non-knockout strikes you will ever see in your life. I just think for Lainesse, I'll be curious to see if the pressure that he doesn't necessarily deal with all that well is going to be a recurring theme throughout his UFC career, because how did Gabe Green break him down? You're right, Lainesse did slow down as that fight went on, but it was the constant pressure and the constant just physicality of a guy like Gabe Green. He's always doing something. He's making you think he feels a lot bigger than he really is in the cage. And that's another point that I wanted to bring up for this video. Yohan Lainesse 90% of the time is the biggest welterweight you will ever see.
So it was said too by CM Punk in the fight against Cuts with CFFC, the fact that Lainesse was 193 the morning of the fight for the title, and Lainesse is huge, whereas Malott used to be a featherweight, and he's built himself up into a welterweight. But I really want to see both these guys square off on Friday after weigh-ins, because I would assume Lainesse is still going to be the bigger guy, even though height and reach is pretty well equal.
I do, and this is where I'm almost going to zag on myself. I actually think Mike Malott's speed advantage is going to be a big factor in this match, because the thing about Lainesse is he's not a slow puncher by any means, but they are somewhat telegraphed if you are an intelligent striker on the outside. If you keep your eyes open, you can see what strikes he is throwing towards you, and they do slow as the fight goes on. So if Mike Malott is able to go in, get inside the pocket, get outside from some of those bigger shots of Lainesse, I could see him having a lot of success. But like you had brought up, Yohan Lainesse is a much higher level striker than even a guy like Mickey Gall. And I know Gall has made improvements throughout his career. I think that's fair to say. He's definitely improved on his boxing. He has a good jab. But Lainesse has genuine consequences when he lands his power shots, unlike a guy like Gall.
Well, and if you watch the Mike Malott fights, Contender Series, you watch him on the regional scene, like he fought in Eastern Canada, because that's the thing. For Malott, he went to school at Dalhousie, which again, every time I'm going to say just boo to Dalhousie, but he went to school at Dalhousie and he started to train at Titans MMA, which is a gym that we've seen Gavin Tucker out of, and we see a lot of fighters. Like if you watch Fight League Atlantic with Derek, you know that, hey, you're going to have a lot of fighters at a Titan. So that's what Malott rep for his early MMA career. And then somehow he made his way down to Team Alpha Male, and he became the jiu-jitsu coach, the Muay Thai coach, and the boxing coach. And if you watch the fight that he had against Gall, John Anik says in that one, Malott's got that experience of cornering like 15 to to 20 different UFC fights. And that was the thing. We would see Mike Malott in all of these corners for years and go, why the hell isn't he fighting? Because he was a really good fighter. And then all of a sudden, he started to pick it up in the last couple of years. He has his own fight with CFFC against Solomon Renfro where he gets hit and dropped early, and then he comes back, and he ends up getting the finish in that one against Smatritsky. Wasn't all that close in that one. And even against Mickey Gall. Gall was landing like he had Malott on the back foot, and then all of a sudden, Malott plants, right hand, left hook, drops Mickey Gall. So, again, the commentary was pretty bullish on Mickey Gall, leaving his chin up in the air for the majority of that fight. But Malott was wearing it on his face, and that's the thing. Renfro fight, Gall fight, the fight that he had against Hakeem Dawodu. One thing that Malott can struggle with too, and most fighters do, is the pressure. But for Malott, he reminds me of a fighter like we had last weekend, and maybe it's the CFFC connection, it's cheap, but a guy like Blake Bilder, I guess it's 2 weeks ago. Bilder's got to get hit, Bilder's got to get dropped, Bilder's got to get into a fight before he really starts to mount his own offense. And to me, watching Mike Malott fights, I find myself, I could be completely wrong, that he's kind of cut from that same cloth, which is kind of worrisome against a guy like Yohan Lainesse who's got power like this.
Definitely. I just think Malott, he is so much more well-rounded in this matchup that even if he does struggle with some of the power on the feet, he will have the answer in terms of his wrestling and his grappling if he isn't able to succeed with what I assume he should be able to.
And we'll see, because Yohan Lainesse about a month ago picked up his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt from his coach, Mathieu Davio, over there at Académie Connexion. So for Yohan Lainesse, he is the underdog. Mike Malott's a little bit over, a 2-1 favorite in the matchup. We have a look at the Tapology votes. Surprise to us as they are to you. Matt, the all-Canadian matchup. I'm going to say over under 70% for proper Mike Malott.
I think it'll be over.
I think it's going to be over. It's way over. So 670 total votes. We'll say 91% Malott, 65% by knockout. For the 9% that have Lainesse, 57% by knockout as well. So a lot of people anticipating a knockout between a couple of guys who like to strike. For me, yeah, I agree with you. I think that, yeah, Mike Malott has a definite speed advantage. You look in these fights, he's throwing in combination. He still does have that issue where you mix in a couple of power shots in your combination, you send him back, and once he gets behind the black line, he can really struggle. Lainesse could definitely do that. I'm ever so slightly going with Mike Malott, but more than a 2-1 favorite. It's a little weird based on the fact that, again, I assume Lainesse is going to be a lot bigger, too.
You're right. Lainesse just moves backwards, though, is my big issue with this fight. Like, Lainesse in 90% of his UFC career has had his back up to the cage and been completely square. If that's the case in this fight, Mike Malott can just run backwards at the face of any danger, and then if Lainesse does follow him, shoot him for a takedown and be the more well-rounded fighter. I think Malott can hang with Lainesse on the feet, which is where Lainesse specializes in, and I definitely favor Malott if it does hit the mat, so for those reasons, I do have Mike Malott.
Both of us going with proper Mike Malott out of the Burlington, Ontario area. We're not going with the Quebecer Yohan Lainesse in the matchup. I really want to hear from the commenters out there because I know a lot of people are fans of both of these guys here on the Fight Night Picks channel. So let us know who you have in the matchup. Some big time fights on this card, including Krylov versus Spann in the main event. Gonna want to keep locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say,
let's get into it.